really unique, complicated tasks of assembly, or materials that tend to move, we call them organic fabrics, managed in the traditional way in terms of cutting and assembly. Robotics struggle with that.
Okay.
Goods need to be more rigid to manage this kind of robotic assembly today.
Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to a brand new episode and a brand new season of Clothing Culture. Bret, we are in season 4.
It's crazy how time flies.
I'm impressed with ourselves. No.
No one else is, but we're impressed with ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm excited about this season. We have a lot of great topics already lined up, great guests as well. But this episode I've actually kind of had in my brain for a little while, and it really came together for me on a recent factory visit. It's really talking about
factory visits. I think it was like 19 cities in 23 days.
True.
So that was a lot in a short amount of time.
I want to talk about the humans behind this process. We are in an industry where, if you pick up a garment at a store and you see, a little imperfection, you can be, oh my gosh, this is imperfect. But when you really get yourself into the lines, really see what's happening to bring that garment to you, you understand the thousands of people that actually had their hands in your garment. It's a human process.
Yeah, very human process.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, technology's weighed pretty heavily into different parts of the process, but it's still very human. And it was really interesting when we were traveling with yourself and Lauren on this trip, and it's almost kind of like second nature to me because I've just been there and done that so many years in this career. But kind of seeing this through the two of your eyes, you were just like, every time we sat in a room, every time we walked through a floor of all these different steps, you guys were just amazed at the sheer number of people that were working at each and every step. And it really got me thinking again. And yet I remember years ago where I had that same really visceral experience, and you really in your head, you're like, how does this thing happen? Because in some cases, manufacturing is a little more self-contained. The thing comes in one side and comes out the other.
Yes.
And in our industry, there's all these so many in some ways disparate parts that have to all come together, and everyone has to work together to get the ultimate product done. And many times it's in countries that have challenges with infrastructure, and
right.
But they find ways to pull it together. It is truly this community of people that make this happen. We say at Stars, not me, but we. The entire organization and our industry lives on we. If we didn't have effective we wouldn't have product, and it's kind of amazing that way.
Let's break down that we a little bit. That's such a funny sentence, isn't it?
Oui.
Maybe. So, this industry, it's hard to get an exact number of how many people are actually in it, but it's in the hundreds of millions that we know. And
I'd get to like 99 and forget where I was, and I'd start counting.
Right. And when we're going through this process, we're thinking about all the different groups that are that have their hands in this one piece of garment. So, we've got from the fiber forward. So we can talk about that.
Farmers, growers, changers, transportation. I mean, it's
goes
pretty amazing.
On and on and on. Then you've got, once that fiber makes it to the mill, that whole process of turning that fiber into fabric.
Yes.
then you've got not just the fabric, the dye stuffs, any kind of prints or treatments that are
As it
being
goes
added.
into dyeing, you've got the whole dyeing element.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you have thousands of people at that point.
Yes.
Now you've got just the garment creation itself. You've got your designers, you have your product development team, you have
Technical team.
You have
planning for factories.
Okay, and that was what blew me away. So here you are. This factory has taken a look at the tech pack, taken a look at all the specifications, the design, and they've said, all right, yes, we're going to make this. What they do is they have internal planning with leaders that are going, okay, here's how we need to make this garment. And then they're working with the people in the line to create the solution of how this garment's going to come together. You've got a dozen or more people just in the planning.
And not only how it's being put together, but the exact timing of how much each individual step takes to determine an overall profitable cost.
We were walking through a line of one of our programs, and just that line alone had 94 sewers.
Yeah.
94 people. That's just in the sewing line. And then you've got quality control happening throughout. People are pulling things midway through, measuring them, making sure that everything's to specification. And then even when it's done, it's not done. Right. You have your ultimate quality control. You've got packing. You got people adding the trims. You've so many things happening to this one garment. It's astounding to me.
Yeah. Then you get in the logistics aspect, the loading of those containers, the small trucks or lorries that take the goods to port, the assembly in port, the distribution of goods all around the world with everything that's happening crazy, the people that are unloading it at ports, the truckers that deliver it, the retailers that take it apart and put it on the wall. It is a massive people industry.
So it actually kind of amazes me that a garment is priced as low as it is when you factor in the number of people that are behind each one. So it really makes me appreciate what we're wearing every day.
Yeah, this industry has those very unique challenges, in my opinion, where the cost of garments haven't really risen to the level of other, consumables or wearable or other items in the industry, and it challenges you each and every day to figure those things out.
Yeah. So, I'm glad it's a human process still. When you talk about hundreds of millions of people being employed, you've talked at times when you were in Ethiopia, that factory of 2,000 people fed 40,000 people. So, it's quite a positive impact. Let's talk about maybe some of the changes that we are seeing happening, either improving efficiencies or improving quality with technology.
This goes back to, even previous conversations we've talked about with, the increased demand for speed or keeping costs low or things like that. As human labor costs increase, the overall world is getting more expensive. The basins for inexpensive labor are going away. I mean, there's still some, but the ones that are really affordable are still somewhat problematic from a number of fronts. Technology kind of creeps in different areas to speed up different processes. And in speeding up processes, it's also increasing the quality of an individual step. As mechanics, robotics change and replace human hands in certain operations, those operations become more precise. And so it's really exciting to see on one hand that, for many years, there was no cheaper thing than human labor in certain cases. So why invest in technology? As those changes and shifts happen, you're finding auto buttonholers and lines replacing regular, people manually doing that.
Which saves hands, right?
It saves hands
yes.
in some ways,
Yeah.
but you're seeing automatic cutting tables versus manual
Right.
cutting tables.
That saves fingers.
That definitely saves fingers. Yeah, you know, a cutter that's been in the industry a long time, sadly, might
Yeah.
not be having a finger at some point. It certainly saves fingers. On the other hand, there are certain countries that rely exclusively on these kind of opening levels of industrialization, like apparel. And they don't have a big opportunity or infrastructure to evolve that production base to something that might be more. And so, you know, there's always two sides to every story. There's exciting things that are happening in terms of technology that are improving our industry, making it more efficient, helping us keep our costs down, our quality higher. But on the other hand, there's impacts to the human condition because they rely on that for a living.
You know, as we're talking about the sheer number of people that have hands in a garment, of course, there's going to be little imperfections from time to time. Let's talk a little bit about that, Bret.
Yeah, I think overall people think that manufactured product has no imperfection. And certainly over the years, processes of manufacturing have reduced imperfections, right? Even in our industry, we've seen a major shift toward more quality, even at lower opening price point levels, because there's been an awareness and a focus on improving process to the level that repetitive process improves quality. But there are still imperfections in many garments. And, you know, we have a way of kind of distilling what a production process looks like in general. And that's through inspections, quality control, quality assurance inspections. There's things called AQL levels. We've talked about them before. Setting standards for inspectors to determine those. So we take and we kind of define these imperfections, if you will, in garments into three major categories. Critical is something like a needle in a children's garment where it's a hazard. Yeah. The entire shipments are generally rejected. You've got to go through and kind of rework the entire shipment, making sure that you don't have any dangerous materials in a shipment in general. You have majors. Those are things that for people that aren't in the industry, average consumers, when they pick up a garment and they see a defect that's so evident that they either return the garment or they don't buy it. That's majors. And there are a very, very long, comprehensive list there. And then there's minors. Minors are things that we in the industry know that could be a little bit better, but would never cause a customer to return them. And we set standards. Every company has its own set of standards for quality within garments. But we set them at different levels, and that AQL allows for it to be set at different levels so that we're kind of understanding and cognizant of what's leaving the factory and what level of quality that exists. I think bringing awareness to each one of those things, constant process innovation, constant process education. We saw that in a lot of factories where workers were being educated in the better factories pretty consistently. Lead to better product. So understanding, you know, for those that are kind of newer into the industry, understanding there's no such thing as a perfect garment, and there's associated levels for quality in our industry because it is a human kind of process, aided by machine, I suppose.
Yeah. So what's happening in the world of innovations to ensure that, you know, we're supporting our humans as much as possible in their process and improving quality?
Yeah, the question is whether it's supporting humans or replacing them. That's a big conversation.
I'm hearing robots in the future. Yes.
Robotics in general sometimes are replacing humans, and we're seeing a lot of technological advances in robotics that are wholesale replacing, like one robotic machine's replacing 3 to 10 human beings.
Whole garment knitting.
And whole garment knitting is very, very interesting. On our recent trip, we were astounded by a level of a factory that had invested so much into the latest gen whole garment knitting. And, you know, watching a knit that's been fully programmed, knit start to finish in 7 minutes, regardless of the complexity,
Yeah.
and popping out almost like Willy Wonka in this
I
little
know,
funnel
crazy.
into a machine.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Humans are walking by, they might be rethreading something. The machine is managing the entire garment. And that's, from a technological perspective, that's super exciting.
Right.
I love the fact that we've progressed to that point that we can make apparel more exacting, and we can do some amazing things with this new technology that exists out there. And so we're finding that at all levels. When it comes to different fabrications, robotics are more effective in terms of auto cutting or auto assembly. There's some new technologies out there that are creating both cutting and assembly built into one entire garment. And that leads to maybe more of a distribution of production around the globe, where we had abdicated manufacturing in the US, or
Right.
Europe had abdicated manufacturing in certain parts of Europe because of the cost. We're able to bring some of those industries back because of technology.
Yeah. Where do robotics fall short?
Still today, although I don't imagine that will be permanent, really unique, complicated tasks of assembly or materials that tend to move, we call them organic fabrics, managed in the traditional way in terms of cutting and assembly. Robotics struggle with that.
Okay.
Goods need to be more rigid to manage this kind of robotic assembly today. And so, but every day we're seeing improvements. Certainly you see glimpses of that in the medical industry, where precision is occurring in delicate human organs and, in surgical instruments. It's going to find its way through all industries in time. And so the big question is, what's the future look like for, our industry? How much is going to be fully robotic? What are these massive workforces going to do? Where are they going to shift in certain countries? Because precision manufacturing, robotics are now coming to the level where speed is a real thing. They're able to knit things quickly and efficiently, and I think the affordable factor is coming into play. That's going to change the dynamic of our industry as it relates to people.
Well, I'm glad for now that it's still a very human process. We've had a great opportunity to meet a lot of humans along the way, and I'm going to embrace those little imperfections when we see them. Do you have any other thoughts to share as we wrap this episode up?
I think, I've always loved this business. I've always been fascinated by the people that have been involved, understanding that this industry embraces the human effort. And there's some pretty wonderful people out there that are making your garments. Just be cognizant of that entire chain of individuals in the world, as you're buying your garments, because it's a pretty fascinating thing.
Yeah, we're going to work on a download for you for those who are interested in really understanding each little component of the process, to get a visual around how many humans have hands in your garment. So make sure to take a look on our website for that if you're interested. And as always, stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to stay apprised. We will see you soon.